So here we are having a chat again. Rafa, you've been the coach for the world champion of boxing.
Yes, I have been working with Kiko, La Sensación Martínez for 4 years now. So basically, when I start to train proactive change work, I wanted to use with elite sports, and I was be able to get in contact with him and start to work together. By that time, Kiko had not the world championship. He was almost at the end of his career, and almost everyone in the environment was selling to him to retire because he had been already 3 times world champion and around 4 times European champion. So there was no.
How old was he at the time?
30. By that time, he will be around 35, 36, roughly.
Okay.
Which for a professional boxer is quite a big age. So around 40, 35, 40 is when physically they have to start to think that they physically they are not the same. The reaction and reflex and everything starts to change a little bit.
So did you find him? Did he find you? How did this happen?
I find him. So basically, we have a person in common that he was my trainer when I was doing kickboxing. That is Vicente Salvador from the brand Rule the Boys. He was my trainer. He had this brand, and he was for a period of time the promoter of Kiko. So I spoke with my trainer, and I said to him, look, I would like to work with a people who is in elite performance, because I want to understand as well. Part of my own interest is to understand the mindset of people who are overperforming, who are performing above of the average in the fields, in different fields, sports, in business, in therapy, in our world, the same. What is in the mind of the people who are performing above of average? And
on that note, I'm interrupting you here. Was there something that you found that made people like Kiko in boxing overperform compared with others?
Yes.
What was that?
Yes. So, for example, from my point of view, this is my subjective point of view.
Definitely, because but you're doing the research, so your opinion matters.
Yeah. All right. So, from my point of view, living in the world of coaching and therapy, and working with different kind of trainers, there have been 2 people who I have found that they are training, they are working constantly with live clients. So they are not just trainers; they are trainers and doing actual change work with a very good results. One of them is Nick Kemp, that is the creator of Provocative Change Works, and the other one is Andy Austin, who is the creator of Metaphor Movements and IMT.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, when I have been in all of trainings and all of this, let's say, this world of change work,
the chaos of change work and the
chaos,
yes. Promising of change work, and you can change your life in 1 word. Change work.
So you can see that there are different styles. There is people with a very good marketing as well. A lot of people that are very good.
They just market that they will help you change, but they won't get you to change.
Yes, I think so. I think there is people with very good marketing, and that's people buy it. This is one of the things. People buy it, and we can speak a little bit in the area of sports. When I see people in elite sports thinking some of the background belief, like the law of attraction, things like that. So there are people who believe these things.
So I'm going to interrupt you again here. The problem with this, I believe, is the sales part. People invest so much money in courses like the Tony Robbins courses and the personal development courses that by making this huge investment, they start to feel either guilt that if they do not change or do something about their life, then they have spent the money, wasted it. Second thing, there's a lot of anger, like I came here and I expected something different. There's this rage at, then they start blaming whoever they trained with. And there are simply people who are like, this doesn't work, let me find something else.
Yes, exactly. So this is part of what is going on. So basically, in that point of view, I have been looking for real results, and one of the main things, because it was my own experience working as a coach, NLP, so working with people as a client, totally outside of our environment, totally outside of NLP, no idea of what is NLP, not idea of what is coaching, which were the results with these people. And I have been trying to look for the people who were overperforming in the same way that sports, in the same way that business. And from my point of view, Nick Kemp and Andy Austin are overperforming the average, basically. And then part of my internal interest is what they do, no, for overperforming.
You want to know the secret? They actually work. Compared to others who say that everything is easy.
I have to tell you one thing. I see the same, exactly the same patterns of behavior, for example, in Andy Austin, that I can see in Kiko Martinez. Exactly the same. And also in some of the behaviors and ways of working of Nick Kemp. So there is these things that I can see that work. I think there are basic things. There is no magical ingredient. There is no say, the magical ingredient.
Let's pick three. What are three basic things that you found? Like in Kiko, the world champion in boxing, that's like 36, 37. And in Andy and Nick, who are changework trainers and practitioners. So let's pick three things.
Three things. First of all, work ethics.
Okay.
So they don't negotiate the amount of work that they are going to do. You know, most of the people, we try to negotiate. Oh, we are going to try to do a little bit. Oh, I don't work in like 5 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock in the morning. No weekends. These people don't negotiate the amount of work. They know that it's going to be high price, a lot of time, a lot of effort.
So if it needs to be done, they do it.
Yes, it's not negotiable. They don't try to negotiate about that.
So can we call this being proactive and driven?
Yes.
Let's say?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, but above average, because.
But the thing is here, Rafa, being proactive and being driven doesn't have to be like what they mentioned in the how they call it, the hustle mindset, and you always have to do something. What people miss is that if they are working a little bit more proactively, a little bit more than usual, they are outperforming 90 to 95% of every other person who is, as you said, negotiating the task. Oh, I can do this. Oh, AI will take my job. Oh, etc., etc., etc. Like right now in AI, we have lots of discussions, me and you, about AI.
Yeah.
AI is bad, etc. Everything in life has its positives and its negative. And in the end, we're not going to be like Terminator and Skynet and it's going to bomb us. And if that happens, we probably deserve it because we created it. But the idea is like, with all the AI tools that are present right now that simplify people's life, it takes like a press of a button to search what can be done or to ask somebody that knows.
Yes.
That creates that's like just taking an extra step compared with everybody else.
Yes, there is two things in that point. Kiko for a long time, he has been doing always more. and he has told me different times, Rafa, one of the things I have discovered over time is that more is not better. More is more. More is not better. So it's trying to do more, but better at the same time. And that's what makes the difference. So you can do more and more and more training and more training and more training and more training in boxing.
Is that the second point?
Yes.
Okay, so what shall we call
No,
this?
no, this is the first point. This is part of the first two. So it's the work ethics. More is working more, but not just working more and more and more and more and more and more, because this doesn't improve you. There is a concept in sports psychology that I like a lot that is called deliberate practice. Deliberate practice is this practice that you do a little bit more, not too much more, but a little bit more, but everything that you do more is with a purpose of improving yourself. So you want to improve yourself. So basically,
I think if you've read the book of James Clear, Atomic Habits, it's like doing one small thing every day and it compounds. It's like compound interest. If I add like 1% of things on my daily routines, like read one page of a book, do one thing, simplifying it to the minimum, at the end of the year, it will have a compounding effect that would make a huge difference.
Yes, exactly. So there was a psychologist, I think it's Erickson. Erickson is the family name, who has the book of deliberate practice. He I think create this terminology, deliberate practice, and I think it's in the work ethics and the way of working and the strategy of working that Kiko and Andy Austin, for example, they are using, is this one. Is this. So basically, when we do the trainings every week. So how many days we train? You and myself every week. 3, 4 times, 5 times weekly? Whatever.
If you mean actually attending trainings compared with reading, watching videos, dissecting, reviewing old stuff that we did, like the first stuff I believe that made a difference for us in learning certain things was doing things and then watching ourselves and then having a chat about what we did and how can we improve that, and dealing with the apprehension of we're smiling here, here we're just taking it, here we're trying to be funny, here we're trying to too hard, etc., etc., and getting other perspectives. Like we had our friend Rafi, the improv trainer, was like, okay, what's going on over here? So I think one of the things I can add to what you're mentioning is the removing the fear of scrutiny and criticism from others, which is something I think I see in a lot of people, especially like Andrew Austin, is when he is asked or criticized about something, he doesn't defend it in a way that you've insulted his ego and he's in a high status. If he doesn't know, he's like, I have no clue. If he hears that this is something that's useful and is worth changing, he'll incorporate it in a snap and give credit.
So that jumps in one of the second things that I have seen in both in Kiko and Andre and also in Nick. They just focus on what it works. So they are not attached in any emotional way in, let's say, this technique of NLP, it has to work. And so they are not attached. They just do the work, see, it works, it has a good result. Yes, let's go to work with that. If there is not a good result...
You see that? I see that in a lot of people, and it happens to everyone. It's the fear of the loss of time. I've invested, like we said earlier, a lot of money. And in addition, I invested a lot of time learning this. This is something that is very essential to me. I practiced this. This is the way that things should go. But no, it's more about understanding the situational, the scope, as we talked in the first episode, the scope of things and what can be applied here and what can. And life isn't very digital. There are lots of digital problems where it's either black or white, but also there's a lot of analogical stuff where things can be on a certain spectrum, they change.
Yeah. So this component of this fear, for example, and I have experienced myself of I have been wasting my time, my money, my energy. I have been a damn believing in all of this. So there is a point in that you have to put this in front of you and analyze it. There is part of the training that maybe I have invested my time and my money. They don't really work. You have to discard it. But you don't know if they work or not work until you have done the effort. This is the thing. And this is very important.
At the same time, it's when the fear of investing in something and not getting a result, there is a certain regret or shame thing. Like, I don't know if you saw recently, I had an issue with a website where I was subscribed. Resume.io, avoid it like the plague. So I was helping a friend create a CV and I created it there. I paid for 1 week and then I canceled the account and then they started withdrawing money for like a monthly subscription, although I canceled. So that's the same thing, like investing in a training, buying a book. And like, will it give me what I want? Will it not give me what I want? The thing is, when people face an issue by trying to do something and then it backfires at them, they don't know how to deal with the repercussions. Like for me in the past, I could have done like a lot of people I saw online who had been scammed by them, just forget about it or post it somewhere. But I had in my mind, like, okay, this is something I need to fix. And this fixation of finding a solution is, I think, rare in a lot of people. And I learned that from the work of Andy, from the work of Nick, from actually people who like stand up for what's been done wrong in a certain place. So the fixation and the consistency on that specific thing got me the result back faster than other people. Although a lot of people were like, forget about it, it's not that amount of money, etc., etc. But going back to your point and to the ethics of things, so is this something that's allowed to happen, or is this something that should happen or not? And the second thing is, how much will I fight for what I think is right? And keep doing things to get to a place where there's a possible solution, and knowing where to give up and where to stand our grounds is very important. Like if somebody's in their 50s, like Mike Tyson right now, and the boxing with I think Jake Paul, that's for entertainment. If he gets beat up and he ends up injured for life, he's 50. Like that's obvious that something's gonna happen.
Almost 60.
Yeah, but if like somebody is like Kiko, for example, who still has the effort, but needs to just change something about how he does things, because his body is not responding the same way like LeBron James does in basketball. He's 40, but still doing things that 20-year-olds are not being able to do. It's because they're shifting what they're doing based on their current experience, what's going on in their bodies, etc. And sometimes they can't. And I think that's one point we can add, like it's the acceptance of where there is no solution is one of the things that also could be found in performance. I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, yes, that's exactly correct. So basically, Kiko, a lot of his improvement is about he has been aware about what has been working or not working in his own body, and he has done corrections according with that. He has not been attached to anything. So what it works, let's say nutritionist, and I have speaking with him, he checked his body, he knows his body, and he knows what it has been working over the years with him and what it has not been working over the years with him. The same with Andy Austin. Andy Austin has been checking and put all the things that he has been learning, and Nick Kemba as well, the same, on the spot. And also with the challenging this fear of yes, maybe all the things that they have been investing time, money, and energy is not going to work. And it's this balance that you say about let's go to check, but let's go to do a real criticism.
The outcome and sticking to the work.
Yes.
Like, I'm gonna do this regardless of what I get or I don't get. I'm gonna do this.
So one example that I'm going to tell you that for me is this in Kiko, for me was like when I understood what he does. I have been speaking this morning with his nephew who has been in the tournament going for the Olympics. He has lost the fight, so is a little bit speaking about with him about this. So basically, the craziness of them, this, I challenge them. I don't know what they carry on doing these kind of things, because you have to be a little bit crazy to be able to pay the price, despite you know that the result may not be in there. So basically, Kiko was paying the price with doing the hard work, all the corrections to be world champion, despite of knowing realistically that he may not be world champion.
That's life.
Exactly. Yes.
If we choose to like if the concept of what's the point of life, we're all gonna die anyway, like, okay, regardless of what happens after we die, regardless of the spiritual beliefs that people might have, it's the life, it's the actual doing of life, regardless of the outcome. It's the journey, not the destination. It's taking the steps. It's identifying the barriers. It's identifying the ups and downs. It's not a straight line. It's the things that we're carrying with us. I'm going very metaphorical over here, but it's like the steps we do rather than the place we get to.
Exactly. So basically, what they focus on, and this is, I think, is the trick of why when you have to keep pushing despite you have the outcome to keep your pistols on, is when you focus, instead of focusing the final result, you focus in the process, and you start to check put outcomes in the process. So for example, when you and this very I showed this very clear with Andy Austin, showing the fast phobia cure, no? The video of the fast phobia cure. He is not focused in the result. He's trying to understand the process. What is in the disassociation? What are you disassociating from? And that's the key. What are you disassociating from in the video? And keep this. So he's focused in promoting this effect. The result, the final result, if the phobia has been cured or not, is like a consequence. Exactly. So this is part of the key. So this is why Frank Farrelly back in the time, Nick Kemp and Andy Austin, I taking the guns and defending their models, because what they have been challenging and putting the outcomes is in the process, and they know the process work. You never got the results, and this is what the difference with other people. Other people are overselling the results. They are not. They say this sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work.
Other people are overselling the results, whereas people know the problem.
Exactly.
But understand the structuring of it.
Exactly, because they have been putting the outcomes in the Fed. What we do in the work now with Nick, for example, trying to understand what happens with the stances, we are focusing in the process, not in the outcome. We are trying to understand, all right, if I want to create this effect, I can do this, and I can do this, and I can do this. And we are testing this. So let's say, for example, boxers, they can win, they can lose a fight. This is the reality, right? So basically, when you lose a fight, which effects you can produce with the stances? You can produce acceptance, all right? So how can you produce acceptance? So you can do the crazy truism, so you can do generalization, going to the
I don't think everybody that's watching will know the stances, so we don't need to go into the details, but the idea is we can create an impact by just identifying the person's experience in a certain sense. So third and last point, because we don't want to exceed the time, what's the last point you discovered that make these people that are overperforming different?
So first, as I said, work ethics. Secondly, will be the delivery practice, and the third one is an emotional one. You have said, and it's I mean what you have said, the fixation. Fixation. So, and I have spoken this with Kiko. I have spoken this as well with ultra marathon runner who runs 100 miles ultra marathons. I think there is a a point of obsession in your field, in what you are doing. There is a point of obsession. The person who runs ultramarathon, for running ultramarathon 100 miles, you have to train every day. You have to do 2 or 3 hours of training every day, a part of your work, your life, your family, which your diet or your food or your sleeping patterns, everything is about the ultramarathon. And he said, well, I will call it passion. It's my passion. It's passion. All right. Yeah. You can
dedication to the work. If we're gonna call it, so we can call it obsession because some people take it to a level of extreme, which is sometimes creating burnout for a lot of people. But when it's a healthy dedication to something and working on the basics, like one of the people that I admired all my life was Kobe Bryant, who had a very, 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 very good the Mamba mentality on the court, which is seeing and understanding, dedication to the basics, where he used to practice like one drill, which is how to move his feet for 2 hours every single day. Or, for example, if you saw a certain player like Allen Iverson, I was watching a video yesterday, he would get 30 players who have the same size of Allen Iverson, and he would put them in line and only play defense against them because he was preparing how to work with Allen Iverson at a certain point who he will meet in the future, because Allen Iverson was the #1 draft pick. Kobe was the number 13, and he was taking it personally. And this it's like consistency in finding the minute details about stuff. And
this is very important as well. The details. They obsess with details. They focus a lot in details because details matters. And this is one of the things I have heard from Nick, from Andy, and from Kiko. Details matter.
Andy, if we're gonna, since we're talking the anatomy of changework, one of the basic things I've learned from Andy is understanding the linguistics of things in a way of the structure of the person rather than the theory that I've learned in a certain way. So if somebody's phrasing something, what are they saying rather than only what I understand? And how this can be used in a sense of benefiting them rather than just analyzing and theorizing. And yes, this is the meta model, and I need to ask this question. And yes, let's use the Milton model and use this pattern, etc. So, what are they really saying? And in his work in metaphors, he explored what people say in metaphors. So we used to see people advertising like, let go of the obstacles that are holding you back. And these are people trying to change something. How can I let go of something that's in front of me that's at the same time holding me back? And I never heard that before, like his work. And it's so obvious. So these details made a very, very big difference in the experience. My last question before we end is, when you saw Kiko become world champion again, he was before, but at this age, when he was working with you, he then became. How was that experience for you, and just seeing that actually happen?
So basically, when I worked with him, I started working with him, he had no titles at all. So he told me that he wanted to be the world champion, but people thought that he was a little bit old. So I started to provoke him because part of my training was top 5 PCW. And it worked very well. So he gets a little bit annoyed with me the first session. Because you are old, yes. What do you want? To go with a walking stick to a ring and start to stick the opponent? So you should go to the garden with the birds, give some bread to the birds. That's it now. And he didn't like that.
Basically, that's the fire in him.
Yeah. So.
What was your experience of when you found out that he actually got it?
I get mad so when he knocked the Kid Callahan's, I was screaming and shouting. So basically, and I was with a friend, so I was like, whoa, crazy. So I allow in this moment in the fight, I allow my feelings coming out. So basically, I was walking later on back from my friend's house to my own house. I was reflecting like, bloody hell, he has been world champion again. So I was like, it has happened because when I work with them, and this is very important, I always say reality is very stubborn. Reality is very stubborn. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't get it. So basically, you have to do the work. But when the fight gets close, the only one thing in our mind is victory. But in the long term, so long time before the fight and after the fight, I know defeat is an option. It's in there. So basically, when it's like, all right, defeat has not been the option, we have won. Now it's a reality. Now it has happened. And this for me was like unbelievable. Yeah, unbelievable. So very happy for him as well.
This was awesome. And we'll see everybody next time. Ciao.
Yeah.